what's right and to have the courage to do that. And unfortunately, as Gen Z, most of the people are walking around with purple hair and a billion different, pronouns that I can't even keep up with. But at the end of the day, I think it's a powerful thing to see people with money and finances stand up. I think it's even more powerful when you see somebody who's like you that has nothing stand up. And when people see average, everyday people doing that, like my dad said, courage is contagious. And I think people will see that it's possible because you trust God to get you through that journey. That's why our country needs to go back to God, because it's not us that's winning. It's God that's winning. This is a battle of good versus evil. This is spiritual. It's not just physical. And we can't do anything outside of what He gives us the capability to do. And He always wins. And when you trust that process and that plan of salvation and success, you know that there's no weapon literally formed against you that will prosper until He says it's your last day. And that's what people need to come back to. Now, what you've said now about Bitcoin, I'm not well versed in this at all. I've had many people reach out to me and ask me about Bitcoin and crypto and things like that. I don't know anything about it other than it's some sort of digitalized thing. But some people say it's good, some people say it's not. I don't know enough about it to actually think anything. I tried to look up something once. Finances and numbers are so confusing to me sometimes in that way, this digital stuff. I just get overwhelmed and I'm just like, Dad, what is this, man? Like,
No, you're exactly right. And I think there's a lot of people out there that have that confusion. So essentially, when you talk about cryptocurrencies, right, there's a big distinction. There's crypto and there's Bitcoin. Cryptocurrencies is a lot of those, Dino coin, meme coin, frog coin, like all those just random things. They're just securities, basically, like a stock. They're basically just projects that any random person could create. It's not a property. It's not something that's actually an asset, but it's a speculative kind of thing. You invest. It's like gambling, basically, cryptocurrency. But when you talk about Bitcoin, though, our own SEC has declared it as property, essentially the same as gold. And why it's so much different compared to the US dollar and anything else is because there's only a set amount of it, right? So there's only 21.3, I believe, million Bitcoin that will ever be released to the public. And right now there's about 20 million in circulation. So when you compare that to the US dollar, right? Well, you can print endless amounts of dollars in our current, Federal Reserve situation. They could just say, we're going to print $2 trillion tomorrow and send it anywhere. And it would be at the detriment of us. But with Bitcoin, a decentralized cryptocurrency, it's a decentralized system controlled by no one. There's no government. There's no sort of CEO or board of directors that can issue more Bitcoin. It's a computerized protocol that was put into place to be the most fair financial system ever created in human civilization. The fact that you're able to send, for instance, I paid somebody in Bitcoin about 2 weeks ago in Dubai. I sent him through my Ledger app. I sent him Bitcoin. The transaction executed within 15 minutes. Rather, have I had to go through the central bank system, I would have had to go and send, if I want to send the $1,500 through the banks, I'd have to go through 4 different intermediaries, including international and public banks, that could literally steal and lose my money. So basically, the fundamental point of Bitcoin is that you're able to control your own bank. You are the bank. You have your own finance, and you're not reliant on Federal Reserve policies and governmental procedures that can literally destroy everything you have. And you see, like the United States, yeah, we are technically the largest or best currency of the US dollar. But you think about places like Nigeria, Argentina, they are losing so miserably by holding their own currency. Their inflation in Argentina was 100% within 1 year. You think 20 to 10% is bad in the United States. Just picture your entire savings literally decimate within 1 year of your entire life. So that's what a lot of these countries are dealing with. And the United States, unfortunately, will be next should we decide to continue with this Federal Reserve policy. Like I said, we are the #1 currency in the world, so it will take longer for us to completely decimate. But should we proceed on the same trajectory, it's going to happen. That's why we'll literally promote Bitcoin, because it is a property. It's not like if I'm sitting here saying, well, go buy some Dogecoin, buy some Ethereum. Well, I'd be promoting a security which is technically illegal against the law of the United States. But me sitting here promoting real estate, promoting Bitcoin, that's within my rights, and it's no different than me promoting gold. There's a lot that goes into it. I know I'm talking a lot, but Bitcoin, I will fully advocate for. Anyone that has any questions about it, I will definitely help them out. And I myself use it as a bank. I don't trust the central banks. I believe it's going to collapse sooner than later. And, I think it's financial autonomy is the thing that's going to free most of us up, and it will lead to the detriment of the regulated financial services that literally enslave us today. So that's my take on all that.
I'll say this because my camera's freezing up, so I have to go with just this. I'm for with anything that's not going to violate law. You want to do it, have at her, right? I mean, if you need to protect yourself, protect yourself. Like, I know a little bit about Bitcoin. I really haven't had as much time to look into it, but I understand fundamentally how it works. And the way I look at it is that I would never put all of my eggs in one basket as working in, say, for example, engineering. I understand that technology, if you have, nothing's 100% secure. Obviously, you want to make it harder to steal, and I would always tell people to diversify. Like, if you're going to protect your assets, don't leave only one way for them to do it, because if you only have one way, then you breach everything and then you lose it, right? Like, for example, if you had, a pile of gold, somebody came in and robbed you, well, you just lost it all, right? Do multiple things if you have the opportunity, so that you can have a contingency plan. If one of them fails, then at least you have some others to do that. So do whatever you need to do, prepare, do your research, and do what obviously is suitable for you, is what I'll tell people. And as long as it's something that people want to promote, go ahead, do that. But just make sure you know what you're doing. And yeah, I would say do at least two, so that if one, something happens, at least you got a backup and don't lose everything in one place.
No, you're exactly right. I say the same thing. I don't tell anyone to fully buy 100% Bitcoin, because realistically, it can fail. And the way that it can fail is if the power grid goes down, which, understanding what's going on in today's world, is possibly likely. So let's just say the power grid goes down, Bitcoin will go to zero, because it's completely relied on a decentralized, computerized system. And if there's no power grid to operate that, then it's going to be worth nothing. So that's why I say you buy Bitcoin, buy a little bit of gold, make sure you have some property, make sure you're diversified enough to where literally if anything happens, you're going to be prepared. So you're exactly right there.
Yeah, that's really what it is. We got to prepare for what's coming, because we know that there's going to be all kinds of attacks and everything else like that. And when you're looking at, like, the FDA, like I said, start taking away access to certain medications and so forth, we're watching this whole thing play out again. And we don't have the same ability to withstand that. They're talking about cyber attacks 2024. This is where you need to prepare. You need to know the right kinds of people to have around you and the right networks. And this is where people need to start preparing themselves and protecting themselves from the unjust government. And I said, if you haven't done this, go back, read the Declaration of Independence, because the founding fathers, they were very smart men, and they understood what was going on. And it tell you straight out that most people will just take it because they don't want to do anything to change. They'll take the evils, right? And that's just human nature. And it's even worse now with the mass indoctrination to make people weaker. And also, they talk, like, you look at it, they pretty much doing in principle everything that they said wrong, why they had to go out and do what they did, is what you're seeing now. And I think even if you're not American, read it, because it starts out and it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That doesn't just mean Americans, all men, because they were endowed, their creator, which is God, with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every human being that is on planet Earth is born with those inalienable rights. And everybody needs to start exercising their inalienable rights, because your governments were not instituted to give you your rights. They were there to protect them, and that is it. And if they are not protecting your rights, you have constitutional processes to alter or abolish your government and institute something that's going to safeguard your happiness and your rights. And that's what people need to do. So you go in there, whatever it takes that you have in your legislation to go in there and get those people out. You get them out and you replace them with people that are going to protect your rights, because you have God-given rights and they need to be protected. The government doesn't have the right to take them away, doesn't have the right to kill you, doesn't have the right to take your children. And especially children's rights need to be safeguarded, because the one segment of the population that has zero rights on this planet is your children. And especially in the United States, they're not given any rights whatsoever. And in Western societies as a whole, this is just a complete travesty that children are treated like commodities and not people. And that needs to stop.
You're exactly right. Whether it's the United States government, whether it's a foreign government, it's ideally the same. I actually had somebody on from Uganda, Africa. It's a country within Africa, the continent. But he actually came on and talked to me what it was like being a refugee, having literally nothing, living in a country where your own government does not care whether you're alive or dead. I've had people like this on my show, and they've expressed how difficult it is, and it's hard for me to grasp as someone who's grateful like me as a United States citizen who grew up in a good household and a good family. It really does tell you a lot about the rest of the world when you talk to people in different parts of it. I mean, actually, next week, next guest I have coming on is from Nigeria, and that's a country I previously mentioned. Their currency is literally, I think, minus 100% in the last year. So like they don't even have access to their banks. It's very difficult in some of these third world countries, but yet the perspective from these people just tells you so much of what's really going on.
Now imagine someone from those. Do you want to go first, Ed?
Go ahead. I'll speak after you.
Yeah, now imagine people from those very third world countries experiencing the exact same thing in first world countries like Canada or here in the United States, and going through the PTSD. We have that institution set up for our rights to be protected here and respected, but we bear the burden of responsibility to push people's hand, so to speak, to make sure it's done. If we don't make sure that it's upheld, then we end up in the same boat as them. During the pandemic, or before, when it started going on, there was people from North Korea, from Russia, China, and all sorts of places, even people who experienced Nazi Germany, having like PTSD flashbacks and like mental breakdowns, like crying, like hysterically saying that like this is what they went through when their countries fell. And the privilege of being from a first world country, and I guess the simulation of it or whatever, is the the comfort of all the things, the industrialized world and capitalism and all the things that we experience that we think that can just never leave. We think that it's here to stay just because it is Canada, it is America, but that's not the case. We have to be responsible for keeping it, because right now we are steadily turning into these third world countries, and it's happening right under everybody's noses, to people's next door neighbors and things like that. Like what's being done to people with money, like Trump, or previous presidents, or people like my father and I, who had our houses taken, our cars taken, corporate assets, jobs tortured at our place of employment by the government, bank accounts shut down, whatever. These very things happen in third world countries and should not be happening here. And so, people need to understand that it's not so far removed, and that we are creating that environment here as well.
Absolutely. I think it starts with the most powerful region, and that's the United States. And when it comes down to technology and revolutions, we have the community of Trump's Iron Fist. Like I said, go join that, or go attempt to join that if you're a valid conservative influencer, and we'll see how it works out. But like I said, there's so many different things you can do as an American to really speak out against the tyranny going on within the world. And just by not getting involved and letting things happen, I think you're just as guilty as the people who are bestowing us with all this tyranny. So that's just my take on it. And there's a lot to cover with all this stuff, but I think the world would be a better place if we had more people just like all of us.
Yeah, before we close down here, I'm gonna agree with you. We're at the point here that if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And when you're seeing like this new pandemic virus or pandemic pathogen, election pathogen, that they're bringing out that's targeting kids in the way that they're trafficking children domestically and through the southern border and so forth. I mean, we're supporting people that you're turning a blind eye to people that are trafficking and raping children, right? And I think this is where we're at. If you're going to stand by and allow that to happen, this is why these people are getting away with it. And you have to sit down and say, would you want somebody standing by if they were coming to rape and traffic your children? If the answer is no, then you need to stop it, because if they don't, it's going to be your kids next. Because I'll tell you right now, pedophiles, they're like addicts. They're never going to be satisfied until they've gotten through every child, and that includes yours. And so that needs to be stopped. You can't sit down and say, well, oh, I have a house or whatever else like that. What do you think is going to happen? Think your kids are going to care about that if they come and they steal your kids? Nope. So you got to, this is where it stops. This is a hard line in the stand. Do it. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for the kids. Do it for your nation, because you steal the kids, you have no future, you have no country, you're done. So this is where it ends.
Absolutely. And shout out to Tim Ballard, who was involved in the making of Sound of Freedom, who was the actual Homeland Defense agent there. I think you have to give a lot of credit to that. And it really shows that child trafficking and human trafficking in general is the most profitable industry, unfortunately, in the world. I mean, it surpasses the illegal drug market. It surpasses everything, because and as sad as it is to say, they can use these kids several times a day. So, I mean, that's something that needs to be stopped. And like you said, these people are not going to get what they want and be truly satisfied until they have every kid in the world. So, that's another issue we need to solve when it comes to having the proper defense in order. But in general, it's us against these crazy globalist, pedophilic people, and we need to fight them back.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that we protect our families, and we need to understand that the trafficking doesn't occur, especially domestically, without breaking down the families, destroying the fathers, then going after the mothers, and then you leave the children. And so we need to restore the families in order to reverse a lot of this, because this is how your morals and your values are transmitted, is through strong, healthy families. And we're not seeing that anymore. And so we need to do that. And I mean, this is where people, I mean, honestly, if you lack courage, go to God. He'll fix it. He did it for Gideon. Like, Gideon was a coward hiding. And what did he end up doing? He ended up doing something really important with him. So anybody can go to God, fix it. Then humble yourselves and go and pray.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it really tells you a lot what you need to know there. I mean, the connection to God, having the want to reach out to a higher power, it really does a number. I can speak from experience. I'm really connected to God. I'm an American Christian patriot, and it's literally helped me progress to where I am today. I mean, to be honest, I never envisioned myself as a podcaster, a political influencer. Just a year ago today, I was working as a logistics broker, working a dead-end job I did not like. And all of a sudden, I just had something hit me. I randomly started making a podcast in March of 2023. Here I am today with no intention of this happening, but I have it within my heart and my soul. I think God's given me a purpose, and I'm going to continue down that path. And regardless what happens, censorship, law enforcement, nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah, I see my camera still frozen, but that's good. I mean, going back to God is always the way. I mean, it starts and ends with that, and he'll give us the strength. And I read the Bible, God wins. So at the end of the day, it's like, what side of the fence do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the wrong side of the history, or do you want to be on the right side of the history? And if you've got nothing that you're willing to die for, then you have nothing that you're willing to live for. Because when I read my Bible, God gave up everything, became a man so that he could die, so that he could come and save us. He gave up everything to save us. And that's who we're following. If you're not willing to sacrifice for God's children, who's the perfect father who sacrificed himself to save you, then you need to go to God and have some serious conversations with him. Because at that point in time, we need to come together and we need to stand up and we need to face this. This is a spiritual war, no matter which way you look at it. And if you're fighting a spiritual war, then you need the spiritual weapons. Otherwise, you're going to lose, right? And that's really it. End of story.
Absolutely. It's very clear to see which side of history you fall on nowadays. I mean, it's very clear. So, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, I would just say to everyone out there listening, be as authentic as you can. Don't fear a gatekeeper. Don't fear retribution of censorship. Be true to God. Be true to yourself, and just be you. I mean, in general, that's how I feel.
I agree. I think you all said it quite well. As a woman, I even need to say that in these days, because you never know these days. But I, in fact, am biological. But as a woman, I would say, bring back all the toxic masculinity, man, all of it, just the worst form. I'm sorry, like women in the kitchen with the sandwiches. I don't care, and not in the not in the chauvinist way, but God-fearing men that love their families, that respect God, love their families the way that Christ loved the church, and want to protect their rights and their freedoms, and then women who want to work together with them simultaneously to create that peaceful and supportive, nurturing environment to create the success of the family. We really need to go back to working together as a unit and as a team. Like I said earlier, every country, the backbone of any country is the family, and I think that in itself would solve so many issues today. And of course that takes time, but we really got to get back to something for the sake of the children first and foremost. Like my dad said, that's the line in the sand, and I completely agree. There's nothing more precious than children. I mean, the Bible says that God says it's better to tie a millstone around your neck and throw yourself in the ocean than to harm one of his little children. There was a man on Twitter the other day, well, someone posted it. The guy had 58 terabytes of CP, and someone was like, do you know how much 1 terabyte is? These people literally need to be rounded up, and I hope that they get the full extent of the law. Like my dad said, I think you have to go to the very beginning of where this started and fix the problems that happened with the election to fully understand a plethora and multitude of issues in a variety of different planes to get this resolved. But I hope when it's done that they round up every single last one of them and give them the full extent of the law in the United States. I hope each and every one of them are extradited here and punished accordingly, because unfortunately in Canada, we don't have the laws to deal with them the way that Americans can put good use to it. So,
yeah, to my understanding, I did a little bit of research. Is it true that they can legally punish you by misusing someone's pronouns in Canada?
yes, you can go to jail. A man went to jail.
Like just like verbally or like written down on paper? How does that work?
It wasn't jail here. It's they're getting down to that point, but you can they can definitely do a lot. Like if they're taking people's kids away who don't go along with this transgender agenda. I actually dealt with a woman. She's in Powell River. She was on the previous podcast. Because of this transgender agenda, she didn't want to go along with it. The social worker was grooming her child, then adopted her out at 17, put her in a place where now she's getting raped and sexually assaulted, and put it in the worst place where people are going missing in Canada and so forth. And the sex trafficking trade is rampant there. And this is what you're seeing happening across the board. Right, there's a guy here in Alberta where they have the RCMP, which is like the FBI, that they're concealing child trafficking rings and pedophile rings that are being concealed in churches and things like this. And in law enforcement, the government participation, you're seeing gross corruption, that these same feds are involved in concealing treason against the United States and involved in allowing the distribution of the biological weapon that allowed your government to be, I mean, infiltrated and taken over by criminals. And that's like, I mean, that's just a lot of wicked acts, and they were involved in systematically torturing people and all these things. So this needs to be clamped down now.
Yeah, but Dad, there actually was a man who went to jail because he refused to. He didn't want his daughter to go through any of the transitions, not socially, not medically, not nothing. And they put him in jail and started transitioning his daughter anyways.
How old was
Matt Walsh had him on the documentary What is a Woman, I think. Yeah, calling him from jail or whatever. It's messed up. So, yeah, my dad's right. Got to put this down now. So, I appreciate the collab, Sir Kacee. It has to happen again for sure. For anyone who, like I said, if you want to join Trump's Iron Fist, we do these all the time. You can connect with us. We can collab and have panel discussions about this stuff because, like we mentioned earlier, Gen Z is a very important aspect to all of this. And the more that we can get together to have conversations, the better. You don't even have to agree with everything, but just being able to sit down and have a conversation is going to make all the difference. I'm not sure how you close out your show, but I can let you say that first before I close out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was great coming on here. This is actually my first ever guest appearance in someone else's show. So I can say this turned out tremendously. And I recommend anyone within the community to try the same, whether you're a conservative, regardless what you believe in. But I think there's a lot of progress to be made here with independent streaming, and especially when it comes to Gen Z, because there is not enough of that. And what we've done here today is not only historic, but it's something that's going to change a lot of people's lives. We're going to get tens to 20,000s of views on this. And so will anyone else that wants to participate in the Trump Iron Fist. It is a gold mine, plenty of opportunity to make money and plenty of opportunity to grow. But with that being said, I really appreciate coming on here. We had a hell of a conversation, coming up on 2 hours now, but yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do this again. I'd love to have you on for next year, both you guys, and we'll kick some ass.